I thought we'd start with Tom's nutshell. I didn't have a choice. You're selling yourself short. Or you mean the choice seemed obvious to you, but still you made the choice. Or you are making an excuse, ducking responsibility for a poor choice that you made. Because we always have choices. Even not making a choice is a choice.
Yeah, that's sometimes I love the nutshells that just are totally self-explanatory. But every now and then, and you guys know me well enough to know that I can't help myself but explain the nutshell inside the nutshell. So they become little baby little nutshell essays. But that was an important one because that's I mean, you hear. I actually challenge people, listen to any TV script that you see on TV, or anything going on, and count how many times the characters say, I don't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. It's like it is constantly in any kind of script, and it's constantly in our vocabulary. And it's like, and we don't even think about it. We don't necessarily, but it's like we we know this part. When we listen to our language, it really tells us how we think. And so even if we don't think it literally, we are really, you know, sort of affirming that idea that I am helpless. I don't have a choice. So I think it's really important in emotional sobriety to know that part of our daily practice is knowing that how we're going to do according to the day, the week, our lifetime, whatever it is, has to do with the choices that we make.
It's so true, Tom. I mean, look, the heart of emotional responsibility is taking responsibility for ourselves and for the existence we
That's
create.
right.
And that's what you're really speaking to here is what kind of an existence is created when I defer or abdicate responsibility for my choices. And we see it in our language. Like you said,
Mhm.
our language oftentimes will reflect our consciousness,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm saying something like, I didn't have a choice, what it's saying is, I don't want to take responsibility
Well,
for
yeah,
a
I
lot
may
of
actually
times.
be saying the choice seemed obvious, and in fact, if we share value systems, that may actually be the case. So it's like we don't
Yeah.
want to don't have to nitpick all language, but it's amazing how often just listening to the words somebody chooses can help them kind of get out of a stuck place. The bigger issue for us in emotional sobriety is when we start to pay attention to all the things we do not control, we get to talk about what we do control, which is our own rational thinking and our own choices.
In my early recovery, I would say yes to everything, because I was observing that instruction to just get in the car,
Yeah.
just do all the things that you were reluctant to do in your former life. And now I think the choice that I'm having to make
Well, now if we can
just
play a little therapy here, I pick at language a little bit more. You say the choice I have to make. You don't have to make it. That doesn't give you credit where credit is due. That's the choice you're making. That when you first came into the program, and we don't think of ourselves as having much going for us at those times, but for you to make the choice to say yes all the time is a beautiful choice. It's like,
yeah, and I stand
I
by it.
think I'll,
Yeah.
it really is the idea is since everything I'm doing is fucked up, I think I'll do the opposite, the opposite George on Seinfeld. It's like, I'm going to do the opposite of what I think. And that was a beautiful thing. But then the other thing, I just want you to do that other part where, you go like, no, I'm choosing. Now you're choosing to be discerning.
I'm still surprised when somebody wants to hang out with me and like text me to come do something. I still think it's like a joke. Like they actually want me to like, come over and do, but
Do you
it's
know who
not.
this
I mean, I
is?
might when I'm super busy and somebody invites me to some really nice social thing, and because most of the time these days I just can't do it. Like I can't fit it in with all my stuff. Um, but we always have a choice, and it's I don't know, it's navigating our limited options that make us who we are, right?
Well,
We could parlay this nutshell into a broader theme about the change what we can part of the serenity prayer.
Let's frame it a little differently, Patrick, because I think it may be confusing to people. Because when I talk about the serenity to change the things I can, sometimes that means surrendering and not being active in some way, right? In terms of now, you could call that an act because what we say acceptance is not a passive thing, right?
No, and when you're talking
In
about the
me,
serenity prayer, it is courageous to practice that.
it is
Yes,
courageous. It's courageous to so see. It's really the good word was discerning that we were talking about. Before your yes was compulsive, you felt like you had to say yes because that would make you liked. That would make you somehow acceptable in the world, right? And see, we often come up with ideas like this that we have to live up to some role to be accepted rather than be ourselves. And see, that's at the heart of a lot of our struggles, right?
right,
Is that if I've got to live up to some idea of who I'm supposed to be rather than be who I am, I've created, Bill called it, an impossible way of life. It's impossible to continue to perform that way, right? Eventually, you are gonna wanna show up in your life more,
right.
and of necessarily so. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing,
Mhm.
it's not. It's great, it's
No, but what you're
I
pointing
you
to,
know
Alan, is we're always looking for that standard of measure. Where's the comparison? How do I gauge how I'm doing? And it's and I just think how I'm doing. As we get into emotional sobriety more, I think the answer to that question, how am I doing, is more of an essay question and answer than it is a short answer. Kind of, I'm doing good. I'm doing better than this. That we can measure those things, and those things can be important. But and I've said this recently on the podcast that one of the places my attention has been going lately is just how much we categorize and how much we measure things, and it's driving me crazy because whenever I'm thinking about something like that, I see if I can not do that, and I can't. I'm listening to my own language. It's like it's like it's just it's so automatic in our culture to measure and to
Can I just
compare.
briefly
Yeah.
can I just briefly ask, so what is the drawback to that measurement that you're describing? Like,
It's
what's the
limited. It's
negative?
limited, and I think also for those, and I don't think we have a corner on the market as a but I think a lot of us, we have that expression in the 12 steps of compare and despair. You know, I have a long history of comparing myself and never coming out on top. It's like it's a way, it becomes another way of my should monster puts me down. So I think but mostly the first part of my answer is I think it's limited. It's like, you can say, okay, well, this is where you are in relation to so and so, but what Alan's talking about is being, you know, showing up as yourself. You know, how are you doing? Just and we're not really equipped to respond to that question without lots of references to the outside world.
I'm so glad that a couple of my clients at work are people in recovery.
Hmm.
And so when they ask me, how am I doing? I can actually tell them, like a version that's approaching authentic. I don't, but I give them I don't, I give them the abbreviated version, of course, in a professional setting. I won't go long. But maybe for you guys, if you
Well,
ask
yeah,
me, I'll,
I
I'll
don't know
go
about you
long
guys,
on
but
it.
I
But
have to be careful because we it's a side effect of this business. Is we get asked that question by each other and so many people that really have an interest in it, that so I can be in a social situation and somebody can say, how are you doing? And I'm about, 3 paragraphs in into telling them, then I look up and they're just going like, oh my God, how can I get away from this? So and go like, oh well, anyway, I buried the bodies and everything's turned out well since.
this sense of agency, though, is so important, isn't it?
Love
I
it.
mean, it
Yeah.
really is. The other analogy I've used oftentimes about this is, where is your center of emotional gravity?
Yes. I
Do
love
you
that. I
put it
love
in
it when you
yourself?
talk. Yes. Good. I love that when you do that. That has meant so much to me.
That it's the same concept that we're just talking about from a different perspective, but oftentimes that one has meant a lot to me because I can feel when I give that away. I can feel when I project it into the world around me. And I can feel the difference when I keep it over my feet, because there's a sense of being grounded, right? A sense of being okay no matter what. right? Is that being okay depends on what I'm doing, not what's happening around me. See, that's a really a powerful feeling to have. And it doesn't mean that I can change what's going around me, but I can deal with it. I was telling somebody today, and this has been a theme for the, last several days. It's not so much what is happening to us, right? It's how we're dealing with what is
That's
happening
the
to us
very
that's the
key.
issue.
Absolutely, perfectly said.
That that's the key. And I was talking to a client this morning and last night. Same kind of thing. Person was describing a situation where she was really frustrated with her partner. She was doing some stuff in the kitchen, and she says it seems so obvious that I need some help, and my partner's not responsive in any kind of a way. And then I go and ask, and he comes in and he stands there and doesn't take any initiative, right? And she's so frustrated
That's
with
hilarious.
the
So he
whole
just goes into the kitchen and just, yeah, stands there like a sentinel.
Well,
yeah,
he's being
right,
a
yeah.
well, we could say he's I don't know, if we were in a group discussion, I'd say he's being available, but he's not initiating is what you're saying. Yeah.
And he's not participating. He's standing there, right? He's passive. He's passive. And participation is driving her crazy, right? So I said, "So how are you dealing with the situation?" "Well, I just stand there and I swallow it and I get more and more resentful. The resentment simmers and I get more and more upset." I said, "Okay, well, let's look at this. Look, I tell you, what I want you to think now. The problem's not the problem. The problem is how you're dealing with it. Let's think of all the possibilities that you have in terms of dealing with this, short of what you're doing and standing there getting resentful. That's not working good for you, right? A part of you ends up hating him, not wanting to kiss him, not wanting to touch him. I mean, all of this stuff. And there's another part of you that values a relationship with him. So, what can we do for you to feel better about the situation, regardless of what he's doing? How can you participate or show up to feel good about yourself?" So, what do you think some of her possibilities are, Patrick?
She needs to not stuff her resentments, and she needs to add more self, and she needs to declare what she would
How could
like from him.
Okay, so she could be more direct about what I want. I'd like you
Yes.
to take more initiative.
Right.
She never said that to him. She just right? She could do that.
She
She
just
could ask.
expects him to, yeah,
But
to just do
okay,
it.
but here's the thing. There's a what I just had this insight when you were describing this situation, Alan. It's like I go, oh, and this I'm doing the presentation tonight for the 7 o'clock for my time 7 o'clock group, and this is kind of what I'm going to be doing it on. It's like when we say what can I need to change, we don't automatically. I think we do more and more and more because we do it. We don't automatically think in terms of what do I need to change means how do I need to think differently about it. So we think how do I need to change? What do I need to do differently? Well, you're going to do differently when you think differently. And it's really just, I mean, the best term I know for it is just one we've used through therapy all our careers, which is just reframing. It's like you got to reframe the situation and see what are the things that you can do differently in how you're perceiving it, how you're interpreting it. And so what you're doing with what you're saying to the person is you're kindly, gently making the point that, by the way, whatever happens next, you're responsible for.
As you look at the situation, you can see possibilities, and this is where what you're talking about, Tom, comes into what kind of an appraisal are we making of the
Yes. Yes.
situation? What are possibilities
Hmm.
in this situation? And making those appraisals are important. But see, sometimes we don't realize that there are so many possibilities. It's amazing that we can be so bright about so many things, but yet in a situation like this, only think I only have one choice,
Yep. I had no
right? To
choice. Yeah,
stand here
we're
and
back
get
to no choice.
yeah, go back to what you
Mhm.
said. So here's some possibilities I'll throw out to you, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to do a range of
Okay.
things because there are so many possibilities. One possibility is she's standing there, and this was something that she was doing for him because it had to do with his hosting his family, his parents, and stuff like that. And he was involved, so she could go ahead, and as she's standing there, she could see him sitting there, and she could say, "I'm going to go sit next to him."
Mhm.
And she goes and sits down next to him and just stays there. And at some point, he's going to go, "What are you doing?" "I'm just hanging out with you." Well, what don't we need to get things ready? Possibly so. You didn't seem to be that urgent about it, so I'm kind of taking your lead. That's one way. See, to go ahead and match what he's doing, right?
Also, let me
She
thought let
could
me I don't wanna
also
make it complicated, but let's toss that in. I teach people this stuff all the time, and you cannot do that with attitude. If you do that with attitude, it's and sarcasm and stuff like that, you are not doing it. It's like you gotta
well,
you gotta show up.
that it's
That's
another
another
option. You
option,
could
but
do it with
it's
attitude.
one that's not gonna work.
Oh, it might not be the best option. We're looking at all
Right.
possibilities. We're not judging
I'm
them yet,
just saying people
right?
don't
We're
when
just
people
saying,
hear that,
no.
they don't think about the idea of how they deliver the line because they really do.
So,
Yeah.
so she could. One way to do this is what I have people say is, all right, if you do that, do it with as much attitude as you
Yeah.
can. So she could sit
Mhm.
down next to him and she could, we call this
Right,
exaggerating
right,
what is,
right.
right? Sit down and then says, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing what you're doing. What do you mean? You don't seem to be that interested in creating a good experience for your family. And I've decided I'm
Yeah.
not either.
I'm
So I'm just
sitting on
gonna
my
sit here,
ass too.
sit on my ass too. So, well, when they come in, I'll just, and they'll say, what happened, you guys? How come nothing's ready? I said, oh, we just don't really care that much that you're coming over.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah.
see, now that's not a great
Yeah.
choice. We know that. Maybe not. That's going to throw
But
gasoline
that
on.
makes the point. Yeah. Yeah.
But that makes the point of how to do it another way where you're not doing it with
Mhm.
attitude. It's just saying, look, it's hard. So here's another
Mhm.
possibility. Look, I want to create a great experience for your family, and I don't want to end up resenting you later on today. So I want to ask you for some of the things I want because I'd love this to be a great experience for all of us today. I want to feel good about you. I want to feel good about your family coming. I'd like you to give me some more help in the kitchen. I'd like you to take some initiative when you come in.
There you go.
Another
Mhm.
possibility. Another possibility is you mobilize his interest and motivation in it.
Yeah, that would
You
be my
see,
preference.
well, it's probably out of a lot of choices, probably the healthiest. There's no question because it takes care of me, and it also doesn't damage my connection to you. It honors our relationship, right? And that's always going to be the best solution is we act for ourselves without being selfish. See, we've talked about that. This is how it plays out in the situation that we're talking about, acting for ourselves without being selfish. But this goes to the point that Tom was making before. You see, if we really try to become thoughtful instead of reactive, a lot of times there are possibilities to discover that may not be our first thought. You've heard Tom and I say, and Tom really, really brought this to my awareness. Listen to the second or third voice.
Yeah, generally don't trust the first one.
Yeah, well,
What?
there was a theme at our, home group, a couple days ago. It was how to bring serenity to calamity, and everybody had a very interesting answer. But I didn't get an opportunity to share, but I was just thinking about how my initial impulse when faced with calamity is almost always toxic alcoholic Patrick. It's anger, it's frustration, it's something kind of incoherent. But in that pause or in that second or third voice, that's the thing that if I follow it, the outcome is generally much more positive.
Well, and the other thing, Alan, back to what you were saying is um, again, it kind of it moves from the short answer or the multiple choice to essay answers. It's like because when you're describing you're describing several things that this person could do that is not expecting him to know what she's thinking, but to actually say some things like she's thinking, and it's like and when we're in a conversation and we're talking about several things, those are just some of the ideas. So the idea is what we're really trying to do is get people to collaborate with other people to say, I don't know, because we're really we're going like, if I'm the other part of that conversation and Alan's saying that, I'm going, initiation. I don't know what you need me to do. Well, okay, I can tell you some things I could really use some help with. okay, thank you. I can do, so it becomes conversational, and we get unstuck. And to use Alan's way of thinking, the unstuck is basically to get fluid again in our conversation. Let's have a conversation that's not attitude, that's not adversarial. Let's have a problem solving conversation. It's not an easy thing to do when you
Workshop
get when you yeah when you get in primary relationships where you have a history and you got these reflexes. You know, they get hit easily.
makes me think of my parents, who have been locked in the kind of the same essential relationship dynamics for what feels like my entire life, and I just know that if they were being consulted right now, and, Alan, for example, if you were to suggest to them, why don't you just declare what you would like on the holiday where the in-laws arrive and ask for what you want and give the other person an opportunity to suit up and show up and do it? They would say something like, well, I've tried that before and it doesn't work, you know? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep doing the same thing that fails every
Love
single
it.
time
I've
and
tried that.
expect a different
I've
result.
tried that before, so I think I'll try it again.
Yeah, for 20 years. I mean, that's, to give you an idea of, where my, uh,
That's well,
software,
but it's
flaws come
right. Well,
from. Yeah.
but see, that's not. I mean, that's the thing for us to look at. It's not unusual. I mean, otherwise, see, that's one of the things we get with all this dysfunction when we work in a relationship. Otherwise, intelligent people, you know, are really stupid when we get into to these things with all this emotional content. And I include all three of us in that thing. I'm not saying they. I'm saying we. It's like we have. That's a tough challenge that we have on a day-to-day basis in relationships where we are close and where we care about what the other person says, and when we have a history that is less than you know wonderful.
Patrick, when I hear somebody say that, because I've heard that response a lot in therapy. I've already tried that. I've tried that. I say, okay, well, look, I know you think you have, but let's role play it. Enact it for me right now. Because what happens is, as soon as I ask someone to do it, so I say, all right, put your partner over here and talk to them about it. What I find is that what they think they're doing is not what they're doing. See, this is a very important thing. I, I'm not able to always trust my perception of who I am and what I'm doing as an infallible guide to the truth or to reality.
Yeah, or even that's
A
it,
lot.
exactly. Even an accurate read on reality, because it is by definition extremely subjective.
It's totally subjective. And so oftentimes I'll find somebody saying that, and I'll say, okay, now I want you to hear the difference between what you did and what I was suggesting. And see, that's how people discover new possibilities is when they think they've done it. Now, that's one thing. Another thing I say to them is let's say they role play it and they pull it off. They do it exactly like they thought that they did it. I'd say, what you're not leaving any possibility for is that he may or she may be able to hear you now when they couldn't hear you before. Things change all the time. People change all the time. And for whatever reason, that may have not been something that they could respond to and in a positive way. It doesn't mean that now is the same or here is the same as then, right? This is different. This is now. So always, if I keep bringing the past into the present, I'm going to continue to create the past.
Yes. I love that you leave though open the possibility that which and my cynical self says, yeah, that's not going to happen very often. It's like, because I'm
But
I'm
it
a
might.
big believer in credit where credit is due. Somebody's done it right. It's like, and and it's a place where you can support. You can say, okay, well, let's try. Like you said, maybe that didn't work in the past, but let's try it again. And see what happens. It's like I love that. That's just great.
And then maybe we could tweak it a little bit. Maybe we can change this. of it or that. But see, it's this thing about you see, it's an interesting comment that Fritz Perls made, and for a while it took me a while to be able to really understand it and understand the meaning he was had because it sounded like an abdication of responsibility, and it really wasn't. What he said is, you start to grow up and mature when you let the situation you're in control you and how you respond to it. So what it means is I used to think, well, that's an abdication of responsibility. No, I'm taking responsibility to be aligned with reality, to deal with the reality of what is happening now instead of imposing my expectation of what is supposed to be happening.
And
The more
alignment
I can
align and alignment with reality, that's one of those basic tenets of what really is emotional sobriety. You know, not being offended by
exactly.
the alignments. I love that. I love that, and I think I've heard you talk about that line by Pearls, and I think sometimes what we do, and when we're it's kind of a nutshell he's done. It's like we write it in a way that catches people's attentions, and the thing that gets your attention there is controls you. It offends you. Of like, what do you mean? But then if you look closer, you go, it's a trick. There's a little trick to that. It's like, no. It's like, this is not the same thing as somebody controlling you. This is about you paying attention.
It's bringing your awareness to the situation. Right on, Tom. Well, this was a good show.
Patrick, you are masterful. I'm serious, and this is not there's no attitude to this. You are masterful at being able to take your inventory and recognize things where you have come up short, and you do that. You're really not good yet at being able to recognize and catalog the things you've done right and good and effective. So keep that in mind when you do that. Because when you tell me something you fucked up in the past, I don't doubt you at all. It's like, I got it.
Nor should
Well,
you.
partly because I identify, but the other thing is this. It's like I do notice over the years that I do have an inclination to be pointing out the positives to you that you are kind of overlooking. So that's just my compulsive therapy.